Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannon's Insurance, where you can be a member of the Shannon's Club. Pace Farm, the enjoyable egg. Hare and Forbes Machinery House. And Gun Lake Quarries. This episode in Deniliquin, New South Wales is a big thanks to the Depot Historic Collection and the Cruise and Diner. It's a story about a local called Lofty, and you're about to see him on this week's episode of Classic Restos. This is John Thomas, and his nickname of Lofty came about years ago when he was around 25 stone in weight. John, or Lofty, is a little lighter these days, enjoying retired life after being on the land around 50 years, looking after rice, wheat and Santa Gertrudis cattle. Lofty has also turned his hand to panel beating over the years, and that talent shows here. In an unassuming shed just out of Deniliquin, New South Wales, this is a little of how Lofty spends his days now, around his cars and around his memorabilia.
As you can see with my collection, I'm very proud of them, and just you'll never change me, you know. And my shed is me life. In 1963, Dad bought a tank Fairlane, and I was probably about 13 at the time. And we pinched it out of the shed and went joyriding with about 8 girls in it, and those Fairlanes were pretty wide in the back. And we hoored around, and I thought if Dad finds out, that's not too bad, but Mum was the problem. She, by God, she would give it to us. So anyway, sort of when I started there first, I went panel beating, and Dad got a bit sick, and then I went back out onto the farm. And then I sort of, got into vehicles and that, and I'd done a couple of vehicles up for myself, and as far as it went on. And I had the farm, and I always wanted a gold GT Falcon. And I had one, but I stacked Dad's Fairlane, and it was cancelled. And it was on the showroom floor, and also ended up with a 6-cylinder, 3 on the tree Falcon, 1967 Falcon 500. And I said to myself, I'm going to get a G2, I don't care what happens. And later on, I found the gold one, but I paid about 8 times more than they're worth new. Tell you first of all about the van. I was out at this property and I spotted it in a shed. And I knew the manager pretty well. And I went out and approached him about the van because I could see it was covered in cobwebs and it was in an old shed. And I said, I'd just love to have one of them. And so I went out and approached him, and he said, I don't know, I'll have to get on to the bosses about it. He was only the manager. I kept pounding him every day to keep pushing him along with it. Anyway, I went back out that day, and he said, I had a meeting with the boss, and he said, get rid of it, clean it up. So I said, well, $50. I said, that's what I'll pay. He said, well, that's pretty good, all right. So I couldn't believe I'm back into town, about 8K, 10Ks back into town, picked up my tandem trailer, and out I went. So they wouldn't change their mind, and winched it straight on and brought it back into my yard, into my shed. And it had a 302 V8 in it, but I did do a bit of creeping in it. I put an auto in it from the 3-speed on the tree, and tidied it up, and I'd done it all up myself, painted it, and in the back it was just like new because it only had kids in there with school books and that. But when I pulled the floor out of it, under the floor there was that many marbles that's gone down the drain hole. It was in the bottom of the cavitation of the body, and I reckon we probably pulled about 50, 60 odd marbles out of underneath it. And I put them in a box here. They're here somewhere in my shed. And, and everyone said, where did you get that panel van from? And I said, it was a local. Anyway, the local dealer seen it in my yard And he come over one day and he said, I sold that van to him. It was P.F. Hogan Motors, Ford dealer. And he said, that's good. He said, that was my first sale after I was working with the Ford Motor Company. And he said, I might have a bit of stuff for you, paperwork. Within about 3 weeks later, he turned up with a full sales brochure and how much they paid for it and everything on it, and give it to me, and I put it in the van. So that's yes.
There's lots to do here in Denny, but first things first, accommodation. Where do you stay here in Denny? Well, myself personally, I've always been a bit of a motel guy, but not when I come here. Welcome to the Deniliquin Big 4 Holiday Park. Trust me when I say this place is a cracker. I stayed here about 3 months ago and I was hooked. The Big 4 Deniliquin is the town's finest tourist accommodation, reflecting its multi-award winning status. Nestled amongst the trees on the beautiful Edward River, you'll be comfortable in your 2 or 3 bedroom cabins, and everything here is just so clean. There are standard and deluxe en-suites, 25-metre heated pool, large shady grass-powered sites if that's more your style, and you can virtually fish from your front door, plus so much more. So when you visit, come and stay here at the Deniliquin Big 4 Holiday Park. And another thing, it's just 5 minutes up the road from the Depot Historic Collection.
I knew she was the one. The heart's going a million miles an hour, the mouth's dry. It's love, mate. Pure and simple. In '71, this was the fastest 4-door car in the world. Back then you could pick one up for a bit over $4,000. Insurance, it's got to be Shannon's.
No one knows your passion like Shannon's. And with our multi-vehicle discount, you can even cover your daily drive. So call Shannon's on 13 46 46. Shannon's, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
Hare & Forbes Machinery House has been family owned and operated for over 85 years, and it's easy to see why. Planning on welding? Look at these welding tables and clamps, air compressors and different air tools, sandblasting cabinets, through to spray guns. Everyone is welcome at Machinery House. There are competitive freight rates around Australia, and you can buy online at machineryhouse.com.au. So remember, Hare & Forbes has the range. So, John, are you having fun?
Yes, Fletch, it's been great. Great meeting you, and thank you for this and that. And you want to get on about the Jeep?
I do. You've got a great setup, by the way.
Oh, yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. And, I enjoy it, and everyone that comes in does enjoy it.
This is what it's all about. The time of your life now where each day when you get up, you can come down to your shed and really enjoy it.
That's right. It keeps you out of the garden. I don't like gardening, but I'd go and wash a dozen cars a day.
There you go. He's on the same page. Now, behind us, we have a Ford Jeep. Obviously, the Willys and the Ford, very, very similar. But I've had a little bit of an education this morning. I think you'll find this interesting too. Between the Jeeps, the stamping that Ford used to put on the parts. Tell us about that, John.
Yeah, what happened, because Willys couldn't keep up there and the Ford was going ahead and the Willys was knocking, the Ford parts off. So what happened then, the Ford stamped everything, every nut and bolt, everything right through the car, which I've pointed through the Jeep, and I've pointed out. It's just the running F stamped in everything. Yeah. And and you talk to a lot of people that come through and they said, no, that can't be right. And then you start pointing it out to them and it's great. It's just unbelievable.
John, we know you're a Ford guy and you like your Fords, but in the serious department, between the two, the Willys and the Ford, is one better than the other in your opinion?
Oh, no, they'd be on a par. They'd be sort of on the par, yeah. But I think there was more Fords in the end around than the Willys, yeah.
They did an amazing amount of work for the war effort, didn't they?
Yeah. They were, everywhere you went after the war, they were on every property, they were everywhere because they just tipped it, and a lot was tipped out into the ocean. Yeah. And, there was a few, and I got this one from Corrawar that I spotted it beside a shed one day driving along and rubbernecking around, and I spotted it. So I went and approached the guy, and I was back to Denny, hooked the trailer on and back over to get it. And my wife didn't know about it.
Then you had your own war.
Yeah, so no, and then she said, oh, well, you always wanted one, so that's okay.
Now, in terms of history with this Ford, do you know much about it, about its past?
Yeah, it was used here, but I'd have to go back through the records, but it was used in here, and I've got all the paperwork, but I'd have to look it up. It was definitely used. Had a few bullet holes through it when I got it. They put it out to the farmers that could buy them and use them on the farm, and that's where I got it from a farmer. And, you know, they're a good old motor because this motor's never been rebuilt in this Jeep, and you could put a battery in it today and start it up, and I use it every Anzac Day for the march and all that, so we've had, you know, and that. But I used to go to Corriwall to the Jeep rally over there, and we'd have a bivouac and a drink up, and, you know, you'd only take your esky with good cans in it, not soft drink.
No, you don't. Well, you don't want bad cans, do you?
No. So, but I've had a lot of fun in it, but after you've had, you know, Falcons and this and that, you wouldn't head to Corriwall again when you get a bit of age on you. They're pretty rough.
The Falcons always drove nice. They're a nice driving car. It'd be like one extreme to the other.
Yeah. All my mates reckon I'm washed, but I said, fix and repair daily or find on rubbish dump. And they said they should be still on the rubbish dump. I said, yeah, they are in my shed. An XR GT, I've had it probably 15 years now, but I tried to get one when they were new, but I was never allowed to have one because of my parents. But anyway, I had to save up, and I ended up paying probably about 10 times more than it was worth new. And I said to my wife, Denise, at the time, I said, I'm going to buy an XR GT. And she said, what do you want that for? I said, because I love them. Anyway, we ended up getting it in, buying it in Sydney, at Titan Ford in Sydney, which it was put in there for sale with an old bloke that owned it. So I'm actually the second owner of this XR GT. And it's, he lived out on a property, and he had a watercourse that he had to go through to get to his property, and it kept cracking the manifolds. So he put the extractors on the first service it had. And he was probably a bit of a rev head like I am, but he put a dual system on, which is still on it today. And it's got a beautiful sound to it, and it does get up and go. Freddie Gibson, he was running the XRs, and I'll tell you what, I was just over the moon when they wrote, because they were just unbelievable. They handled not real good, I can tell you. They had a lot of body roll in them. But anyway, they got them around the track, and they were handled, you know, they handled them well themselves. The 289 engine in them, it was just awesome in their torque. What, you know, they had, the way they had the head set up and everything. They're still a very quick car. Windsor will stand the revs, like the Cleveland is sort of a bit bigger in the block and that, but I think the Windsor is a bit smaller block, and it kept running a bit cooler than a Cleveland would run, and you know, they seem to have a pretty good run with the Windsors. It's a great car for getting out the road and, you know, putting the slipper into it pretty well, and you know, you just got to back off a bit when you see a highway patrol coming along. But anyway, I got pulled up one day coming home from Albury in it, and I thought, oh, here's to go. And my wife Denise was there and said, you're gone now. Anyway, he pulled up and he said, how you going, mate? And I said, yeah, I was going pretty good. He said, yeah, I know you were. He said, but I've only pulled you up to have a look at the car. He said, just keep going the way you're going. He did, and it was unreal. Yeah, no, it's a pretty nice car. I've put new carpet in it because the carpet was worn on the driver's side. It has been repainted, but it was getting down because the old guy had the wheat bag sewn up as a tarp over it and had a lot of rub marks on the roof, so it had a repaint on there. But otherwise it's pretty straight. Oh, I just enjoy it. Everyone looks at you, and then all you've got to do is just give her a brum, brum, you know, and they say, oh yeah, there he is. He still hasn't grown up.
Well, I've been married nearly 52 years in a couple of weeks, and my whole life I've learnt all about Fords, right from the word go. When I was first started going out with John, my father was a policeman, and he told me not to go out with a hoodlum because of his way he drove around town. But anyway, I was a little bit defiant, so I did. And so, as I say, 52 years later, we now have a shed full of cars and pedal cars and all sorts of things. I can remember days when we were younger, we'd go out with some friends and we'd hoon around out to the different pubs around Deniliquin, out in the country, especially over towards Tokemore where the S-Bends are, across the river. That was good fun. Now, no, not so much. I think now we find, or John finds it hard now to even drive the cars properly because of no power steering. It's a bit awkward. But apart from that, we've had lots of fun. I've enjoyed it. I've always loved going. We used to often go to car races at Winton or Calder down in Victoria. But now, of course, we don't do it anymore. So all in all, we've had a lot of fun. And it's been an interesting ride, I might say, but good fun. And 52 years later, I'm still here.
Like Dad, I've always been a Ford man. The Falcon Squire wagon was unloved in 1964, but turns heads today. The Americans call them Woodies, but the panelling, it's just fiberglass and plastic. But it's a passion that Shannons understands, which is why my Fords are insured with Shannons. And now, so's the home.
Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
And if you own a classic, it just has to be insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646. And keep in mind that the Shannons Club is awaiting you. For more information, visit shannons.com.au.
It's a 1974 XB GT, one of the last four that come off the assembly line when the government said any more of them muscle cars we put on the road. And it was fitted with a bigger heads, 36-gallon fuel tank, electric windows, sunroof, and Bathurst Globe wheels. So I seen it sitting in a backyard, and I approached the guy that owned it, and he said, no, I don't want to sell it. I'm going to do it up one day. Anyway, 12 months later, it was still sitting there. So I pulled in, and I had a wallet full of notes, and I purchased that GT for $1,000. I pulled the 1,000 out, and he said, it's yours. I rang me mate up in Sydney, and I told him I bought it. He said, you wouldn't have got it for $1,000, what it's got. I said, well, I did. Anyway, so I brought it home, took it to the farm, and I thought, I pulled the engine out of it, rebuilt the motor just because it was getting a little bit breathy, and I started restoring it. And then I restored it, done all the work at home, and I took it into my mate's panel shop in Deniliquin, which is Tony Jarvis. And he said, no, you're too fussy what you're doing to it. I said, no, we just want it done how I want it. So I rubbed it down, and then he'd come along saying the rubbing's not good enough, so you've got to rub it again. In the end, he painted it, and then I sort of took it back to the farm and started to assemble it. And then I had it on full rego for probably 12 months and drove it around, but it was just too dear on fuel. So I ended up with another couple of GTs, and I said, I'll put it in the shed, and I put it on club plates. It's a good car to drive. It's got plenty of go, but there's only one thing wrong with them. When you're a big bloke and you've got a sunroof in, means your roof's down about another 80, 90 mil. lower in the car, so my head hits the roof when I get in it. So I have lowered the seat right down. Everyone gets in instead of just sitting on the floor. Out of all my cars, the favourite is my Gold GT. I love it. Like, it's because it's got plenty of go, and it's hasn't got power steering. You've got to have good strong arms to drive it, but it does handle the corners great and goes well. Freddie Gibson, yeah, he raced one, and he done pretty well in them. No, it was good. So that's sort of half the reason that, you know, I really fell in love with the XRs.
John, you've got an awesome collection of cars here. It's a real credit to you, you know, with the preservation of them. But not only that, you're quite the collector as well. Some of the other memorabilia that you have here, all those bikes there, where did you get those from?
Just picked them up all around the country. Wherever I go, I hunt down second-hand shops and everywhere. And yeah, and a lot of, there've been a few given here with the days we've had open days, and they see you're a collector, and they just drop them in. Same with the pedal cars. There's been pedal cars there donated, and I've bought a lot, but you know, it's just now I'm finding there's something hanging at the gate every week.
That's amazing. People know that you do this and they support that. And what I'm finding too is more and more of this. It's not just a shed with some cars in it. There's signs, there's old bikes. I guess if you're a collector, well, you're starting to collect anything that is mechanical and moves, right?
If my parents bought me toys when I was a kid, I wouldn't have to buy them now. So I reckon that's great.
So you didn't have many toys as a kid?
No.
Even you got the scooters over the back, even they are rare now. You don't. Well, the days are gone. You just don't see kids out on these things anymore.
No, that's right. And it's very, very hard to, you know, for the kids, everything today is plastic. This is, you know, real steel. And it's great. Yeah, and my oldest trike I've got's 1909. Wow. And it's getting back a day or two.
Certainly is, John. And also the tools on the wall there, all your wrenches and spanners and what you got going on there.
Yeah, there was a lot of that was my dad's stuff, and I decided they were going to throw it in the bin, all the other boys, and I said, no, I'll take it. And I'm glad I did now, because it's, you know, just hanging on a board, and every day I walk in, I can see Dad there.
Signs as well. You've done well there. The odd Ford dealership missing a few signs over the years, John?
Yeah, he arrived up here one day and he said, I've got to go to the tip. He said, Ford just told me I've got to take them out the tip and smash them up. So he said, what do you reckon you do? I said, you're not taking them the tip, you can unload them here and I'll put them in my shed.
All the number plates up on the wall. Wow, you must have had a lot of past regos, John.
Hey, oh yeah, some weren't handed in, or we lost that back number plate, or something like that. Yep. And the ones we brought back from America and all that, I threw all my jeans out and just packed it with number plates. And coming through customs, I said to the guy in Sydney, I said, look, I've got a few number plates because you had to declare stuff. Yep. I said, I left my jeans in America, but I got American number plates here. And he said, oh, gee, I don't know. He said, we'll put it through the X-ray. And he's put it through the X-ray in the back, and he said, get out.
I know there's hundreds of people who could relate to that, especially the trip that I do, well, every October with Mark from Shannon's. I know that he could relate to that as well. Leave your clothes out of the bag, leave that space to bring parts back. That's what you've got to do, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, and there's a lot of plates there that people say, how in the hell did you get them back here? You know, so it's
unreal. John, on that note, thank you so much, or Lofty, should I say. Yeah. It's been a big day here. And it's been a very full day. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and to invite us here into your shed and to be able to film and have your own episode. Congratulations, mate. It's been wonderful.
And thank you very much too. It's been a pleasure to have you here, and it's great. And have a safe journey back.
Thanks very much, John. Till next time, mate. Take care, eh?
Thanks, yes. Thanks very much.
Well, there you go. What a legend. Lofty, along with his lovely wife, Denise. And this episode, again, is a big thanks to the Depot Historic Collection and the Cruisin' Diner here in Deniliquin, New South Wales. As I say at the end of every week's episode of Classic Restos, I hope you've really enjoyed the show. And until next week, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch, and I thank you very much for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/ClassicRestosTV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons Insurance, where you can be a member of the Shannons Club. Pace Farm, the enjoyable egg. Hare and Forbes Machinery House. And Gun Lake Quarries.